Hey, Juventini, welcome back to the All Juve Cast channel, where it's all Juve all the time. And yeah, bitter pill to swallow there yesterday. Juventus played a fantastic match. We were on the opposite end of the result. It's a living we made, usually being on the other side. And unfortunately, yesterday was yet another one where we maybe felt like we got Juve'd. I've got Omer here. Anyways, we're going to get into everything. There's so much to talk about in the aftermath of this match yesterday. It was a wild match. It was an absolutely wild match for a game that ended 1-0. No shortage of talking points. So we've got a ton of you with us already. Alex P wanting us to get this thing going. Well, we had some technical things. That was my fault. Okay, so I had to get that sorted out. But we're happy to see all of you here right out of the gate. If for anybody that's going to be tuning into this podcast on your audio outlets, make sure you get over to the YouTube channel, okay, and subscribe there. We have news videos, match day lives, watch alongs, live reactions. Everything is on YouTube, so make sure you get over there and show some love. We also have a away Vlahovic kit we're going to be giving away. We're not far off from 2K. Let's make sure we get there. So everybody, thank you for the support. Let's keep doing it. Share the content as well. Yesterday was awesome too because Lucci and Anthony did a fantastic job, and I have a massive thank you for them for taking the initiative and running the first ever watch party, which was at Cafe Juventus. It was cool for me, even just being on the opposite side of the country, seeing them link up with some followers and subscribers who have been there since day one of the podcast. So that part of it was really, really cool. And seeing them take photos with those guys and just hanging out. And even some content creators amongst the Calcio community that were able to make it out there and be our guests. So massive thank you to Anthony and Lucci for getting it done. And massive thank you to our supporters. I got a bunch of pictures that were being DM'd and tagged to us on Instagram as well. It was fantastic. So a lot of love, and we're going to keep trying to get those going occasionally in Toronto. For anyone that's in Toronto and the greater Toronto area, if you haven't checked out Cafe Juventus, go over there, give a big hello to Giovanni, a great Juventino, and enjoy some of the great coffee and panini and everything. It's a great setup. The mural alone is worth going there to see, the fantastic Juve mural. Now, without further ado, I see some of the comments already in here, and you've got Teswari, one of the most scandalous matches in recent memory. Reminded me of how we were screwed against Lyon and Porto. Same story recurring against Villarreal, North Macedonia, and Inter. Omer, are you ready for this whirlwind of a Derby d'Italia recap?
Yes, been ready since the final whistle blew. So let's get it on.
There we go. Let's get it on. So the lineups were exactly as projected. The only difference was Adrian Rabiot made his way into it, and I still was skeptical of if we were gonna in fact see a 4-2-3-1 or if it would be more of like a 3-4-1-2, just to kind of rule out Brozovic. I know in the match day live I said Brozovic should be in the lineup. A lot of the live chat said that he wasn't going to be in there. He was in there. And they also ended up playing Dumfries. I would rather have had Darmian in there from the start, but they went going with Dumfries, and I think it was a good call from Inter. But the lineup for us, it was still very attack minded. It was still very strong, and Rabiot went in there. I ultimately had no issues with it because a lot of what we said in the match day live, sometimes the tactics, all this, you overthink it, it goes right out the window because it becomes a dogfight. I literally said that in Matchday Live, and this game was a dogfight. Your thoughts on that initial lineup and everything, Omer?
Yeah, of course, seeing Rabiot instead of Zakaria, kind of twisted me a bit, but he did well, and Zakaria wasn't probably 100% fit. I'm sure he didn't plan going in on the 30th minute, but shit happens. So, besides that, we've discussed everything on the match day live because it was unchanged except for Rabiot.
Yeah, it's I don't know, like we get people so fired up. I gotta say, Rabiot. We will talk about Rabiot in this one. The whole thing caught me off guard, and if we look statistically at the end of this thing, it would have caught everybody off guard. We know based on some of the predictions we had that all those statistics caught us right off guard. If you would have said going into that game that those stat lines, we would be on that dominating end of it, I don't think any of us would have agreed. Do you think so, Omer?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, yeah. The game was dominated by Juve for 90 minutes. It's been a really long time since I've seen this type of play, and against arguably the best midfield in Serie A, and we dominated every bit of it with two midfielders. Something went right with the statistics. The goal is just a shame. Okay, we'll get to it later, but the statistics don't lie. The result lies,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, basically.
Yeah, that is basically it. Now, without further ado, we've got a lot of comments already coming in. The ref, all this. Let's get right into the game, and we didn't have to wait long for one of the pieces right out of the gate, and boom. Well, the title of this week's episode: "Look how they massacred my boy." So this is a minute and a half in, and Lautaro clips Luca. High boot, and Luca gets cut up. He's got a pretty good swell over his eye there. He gets bandaged up, and welcome to the club of the bandaged and wounded there, Luca. But man, so lot of shouts for straight red initially, and on my watch along, my live reaction, I just said, and I fell victim to this too because I just think it's, and whether it's right or wrong, I just figured it was going to be yellow. And I just figured because number one, it's so early into the match. And I know that shouldn't factor it in, but it's just so early in one of these big matches. And Luca ended up being still okay, just cut up. And I just saw it being a yellow. And I know that I fall victim to that whole thing where it's early in a match where it shouldn't necessarily matter if it's the first minute, if it's the 75th, if it's a red, it's a red. But I figured it was going to be just a yellow first infraction, but is what it is. Omar, were you thinking straight red immediately?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got saved by the fact that it was just the first minute, and the
Yeah.
ref wants to ease things up. But that's a straight red. That's a boot to the face, a high boot to the face.
Yeah.
I've seen someone live receive that kind of foul. He broke his eye socket. He passed out immediately and was evacuated by a helicopter to a hospital. The treatment
Yeah.
was awful. It was like a 4-month rehabilitation. That could have gone much worse,
Yeah.
much worse. And lucky for us, for Locatelli, but it took him out of the game immediately. The way I saw him react afterwards, it was out of the game. That's
Yeah.
a straight red.
And that's why I said, I mean, I fell victim to this myself, thinking it's going to be just yellow, and really fine with it because of the fact that it was like first infraction and a minute and a half in, but easily could have been red. I agree with you completely. I agree with everybody in the comments here, Alex as well. Easily could have been a red. Massive thank you to Hamad here for the donation. Very, very kind of you. And he says that penalty was very soft. Rabiot was great. Hope he keeps that pace. We have a big issue with scoring as no one seems able to take a clean shot. We will definitely get to all of this. And Hamad, thank you again. Very, very much appreciated. Now, let's get to some more of the rest of the highlights, really. We just got into one key moment, and it's a minute and a half in. You knew that kind of set the tone for the way this Derby d'Italia was going to play out. So Juventus starts off very good, and we almost got a Handanovic blunder right out of the gate, and you can almost bank on those during the game. Unfortunately, we weren't able to capitalize on this one. He punches this thing out, and it actually goes straight up and closer to his goal line. As it comes down, Chiellini gives him a little bit of a push away, and then just wasn't able to deflect it enough. Hits his knee and bounces up off the bar and comes out. And I thought, oh my God, that would have been the perfect way to kick this one off. A Handanovic error leading to a goal just to rattle him even more and get these guys on their toes. But no such luck for Juventus. We move on, and this is a shame because Locatelli ends up having to leave the match. Juventus plays a pretty strong first half, okay, and there's opportunities in here. We don't have the clips of certain ones, but Cuadrado was doing great. Morata had a great one-timer opportunity that was blocked by Brozovic. That was probably the biggest opportunity. We had Vlahovic on a great cross back post, meeting Morata, who actually didn't get the angle right on his header, and it went back across goal. So we were getting good opportunities. Dybala took a rip from like 30 to 32 yards out that had Handanovic moving, but always a little too high. And then Locatelli ends up suffering an injury. So he has to come off. He's in tears. He literally got beat the hell out of in this one in the middle of the picture. He was taking knock after knock after knock. We saw the boot to the face a minute and a half in. Finally, he had a knee issue. Luckily, it doesn't sound like it's too bad because he's got about 20 days approximately that they figure. You're muted, Omer.
Sorry, it was 4 weeks. They gave an answer.
So they finally gave 4 weeks. Okay, so
Yeah.
a little bit longer. And there you have it. So not that was very, very concerning and alarming at initial look, but it's good that it's not as bad, I guess. So when he leaves the pitch, we have Zakaria that comes on. And my initial reaction on the watch along was trying to figure out if these guys were going to be able to do it and carry that load in the middle, and how it's going to still work for us to keep that rate of play and the creation. So Omar, I'm going to ask you what your thought was when Locatelli had to leave the pitch, and what do you think when you saw Zakaria coming in?
It seemed like it was a planned substitution anyway, because of the projected lineup and everything. Zakaria was planned on playing at some point. We lost a bit of balance for like 10 minutes when Locatelli came out, but we regained it initially. I think Zakaria was great and filled in admirably. But it's a tough blow. Locatelli has been our best midfielder this season, and losing him after we basically lost him since minute one. It's a big blow. We just can't seem to catch a break with those weird injuries. So it bummed me out. It bummed me out. I thought Inter would take control of the match afterwards, but evidently they didn't.
Yeah, I
A bit of
was
positivity.
I was pretty skeptical about the Zakaria change for Locatelli, but honestly, when you look at some of the options, and this is something we'll talk about further on in the match too, it's a tough swing. I thought Zakaria would be the natural change up to Rabiot. But if you enter Artur, you're still not getting the full support offensively of Locatelli. And to be honest, this pivot caught me right off guard. Zakaria and Rabiot. Zakaria is showing us way more. And that might just be because of the fact that, unfortunately, he's been out. Like, we only saw him for a bit before he, from his arrival, and then getting injured again. So we still don't know the full range truly of Zakaria, but fantastic from him when he stepped on. However, once Locatelli did leave, Inter was able to put a little bit of a wave on us in the first, towards the end of the first half. And this is where this whole scenario comes up from. You see Dumfries getting the ball back after Barella got it lost, but falls to Dumfries, who's just inside the edge of the area, takes a step in. Morata finds himself on the outside, sticking a foot in, even with Sandro there, and it doesn't look like Dumfries is going to do anything harmful there, but he steps in, goes to VAR, and it's called, and it is what it is. I was pretty upset with Morata just sticking a foot in there. You got to be 100% sure there. And like I said, you've got Sandro right there. That one was a little frustrating for me, but it is what it is. Goes to PK. So I was screaming for Tech. get it right. Let's go. Guess right. He's been money as far as where he's guessing. He does guess right. He stops this thing, comes back out. I see it go in the net after this melee. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we just can't get a break. Then I see the ref's arm calling for foul. Okay, this is fantastic. No, hold the phone. Delict gets called for coming in early. I've seen a lot of fans' reactions to this, and they're breaking down the photo after. They're going back to this scenario right here, and they're saying Danilo touched the ball first. That literally does not matter in this scenario. So anytime a player has an infraction, so if a player steps in early, which is what Delict he did do, and he gets called on it, it literally doesn't matter. If the ball gets kicked wide, if the ball goes in the net, then the ref can just leave it as a goal. But in any other scenario, and the play goes on, they have the power to shut it down and have a retake. So just need to clear that up for everybody that had the photos of Danilo touching the ball first. It literally has no bearing on this, but this was a frustrating sequence. Omer, did you have the same frustrations I did with Morata just sticking that foot in there? I thought you didn't need to, but regardless, this whole scenario, what was your thoughts here?
I don't know what to think anymore about the refereeing decisions and what are the rules in football in general. It's like the most weird sport. In other sports, a foul is a foul. It's pretty clear. And in football, what is an offside, what is a handball? It varies between leagues and different referees, which puts in some agenda into their decisions, the way they do things, and it shouldn't be like that in sport. In my opinion, that foul, that's a soft foul. It's like six legs on a square meter, and you can't expect them not to touch each other. So not any contact should be a penalty. If that happens in the middle of the pitch, I don't think it's even a foul. And it's not like he stepped on him with
You're
his
talking
heel
about
or his
this right
bare
here.
leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a step with his toes on his toes. That's mild. Like if he would have stepped on him with his ankle, like a heavy step that could possibly be an injury, even, then it's a different story. But if it's a contact sport, that I don't know, it's a foul on the edge of the area, barely touches him. It doesn't even look like he's hurt, just play acting. It
I
shouldn't have
think
been a
I
penalty,
think
in my
you
opinion.
I think it would be even worse if all of a sudden, and I know that it sucks because we're on the wrong end of this particular one, but I think you would open up a much bigger can of worms if all of a sudden we had to measure the amount of contact required to make it a PK. I think that would
Oh,
just make things,
definitely,
yeah.
definitely, but
So
it already happens anyway.
well, exactly, right? But I mean, soft or hard, whatnot. Like I've always said, it's unfortunately like foul is a foul. It just I'm more frustrated with the fact that Morata didn't have to do that, being on the outside, coming in with Sandro in a good position. But you always leave yourself susceptible to the ref's judgment, to VAR. VAR remains, I think Mirko Di Natale put it perfectly. VAR is still a mystery. Like it's a mystery.
Of course, it is.
We're how many seasons in now, and you still have no idea what's going on, what's going to happen, and we'll get to that obviously further on in this one because it does peek its head again. Now we finished the half 1-0, and this was extremely frustrating because Juventus played a fantastic half. They had that little bit of a letdown after Locatelli left, and the question mark was, would you make any changes? Would you do anything going into the second half? Do you leave Zakaria and Rabiot? Because at this point, Zakaria and Rabiot were out there just enough to for us to kind of fall back, and Inter had that wave. Omar, at the half, were you content with us just keeping everything the same and moving out there as we were?
Yes, yes, Juve
Eh,
played great. I can't emphasize this anymore. Like Juve looked great and they dominated the match. Inter got what they wanted. It happens. We've seen it before. We've done it before. You defend, and suddenly you find a goal from somewhere. It happened against Villarreal.
Yeah.
So I was even pretty optimistic. I felt like we can come back if things remain the same way. uh, but it played into Inter's hands. Getting a goal like that, they could just defend it for 45 minutes, and we've seen Juve struggle to get into the area and create chances when teams defend deep. If Inter hadn't scored, then they needed to win more than us, and they would have
Yeah.
had to attack more and create more space for Juve. So it played right into their hands. But I was optimistic.
Yeah. And I think Dell's kind of puts it best. I don't think we can complain about that penalty because we would be livid if we were on the opposite end and didn't get it. So I know I
I would
would.
have been I would have been shocked if we would have gotten a penalty like that.
Oh man, I would have been upset if we didn't get it. I'm kind of thinking the same as Dell's. Like it's just one of those things. And I mean, we kind of dealt with that in the next phase of highlights, which we'll get to. So quick reminder, everybody, while you're here, please like the video, okay, and subscribe if you're new here. Let's get going to this. Georg actually disagrees. He thinks it wasn't even a step. He thinks his foot just landed on that same spot that Dumfries happened to land. But I mean, ultimately, by rule, they just see it as falling under this umbrella of you always needing to be in control. You always need to be in control of your motions, your actions, and whatnot. I can see people saying that it's soft or whatnot, but I mean, if it happened to us, I would think I'd want and I'd expect the PK. It is what it is. To each their own. It is what it is. Second half, how is Juve going to come out? And you know what? They come out strong and they start playing very vertically and doing a lot of good stuff. This is one where Vlahovic turns Skriniar finally, because I thought in the first half I needed more out of Vlahovic and I didn't want him to be so ruled out by Skriniar. Skriniar, to his credit, played a strong match, but I mean, if I think back to when Vlahovic was with Fiorentina this season and Rugani pretty much marked him out, I think of Bremer at Torino and how he marked Vlahovic out. I need to see more, and I find Dusan getting a little frustrated at times. But this was a great turn. Unfortunately for him, it goes just wide. He's on his off foot, and he just curls it and just skins that post. Really needed that one to go in, and he was kicking himself in terms of his own reactions. Now we get to this little scenario right here. So the part that's frustrating about this one, and you know, I'm one that I feel personally that we did so much right and we played such a strong game that we shouldn't be complaining really ultimately, regardless of the refs decisions and what was going on. Because I will say this, Lautaro had another brutal scenario with Chiellini. He should have been out. I was shocked that Lautaro still remained on the pitch for this game. But this one here, the ref calls the foul. He puts it outside. VAR checks it. If this is the still frame, how on earth do you say this is outside the area? You
This is
can't.
just this. If the other thing was a penalty, then this is a penalty too. To be honest, I don't think this is a foul either.
I
But
honestly, like,
he
I think
did call
this
the
one, I
foul.
thought this one was on live look at. I was like, well, this is pretty soft. I was surprised the ref called it. So the ref called the foul, and I was like, oh, he gave us the foul. When VAR is checking it, and you see this as the still one of the still images, if the ref has called it a foul and you're still saying it's a foul, and you give the free kick even after VAR has checked it and is in his ear, how on earth, if this is the footage, can you not say that this happened inside the area? You can't.
This
It's
happened inside the area. It's like it goes by the ball and not by the player. But
exactly. So it's just this whole scenario. This is the mystery that is VAR, and this is a wild one. This is a wild one, and it literally leaves you. It makes no sense, and this is where the scandals and all this come out, and it's a frustrating one. It really is. Now, without dwelling on this one too far, it's wild to me, and what do you even say? What do you even say? It is what it is. We push through. Zakaria continues playing really, really great in the second half. Rabiot had a fantastic game. This pivot caught me right off guard with the two of them. Zakaria makes a fantastic run here, does everything right, has the option of Cuadrado, who he could have slipped in here, but he's in great position centrally, and he absolutely hammers this thing. And Handanovic just gets enough with the fingertips to direct it towards, and it goes post and rattles out. And oh my God, just, shortly after this, we have just start throwing the ball into the mixer to try and make some. You have a few headers that go errant, but we fall short and we take the 1-0 defeat, unfortunately. And here we are. And then you have the uproar. In a brief summary for myself, speaking for myself, I say this, and I still think, in this match, we did everything right. Max did everything right. The players played their hearts out. It was a dogfight. It was nasty. It was chippy. I know the ref made a lot of errors. But the thing is that when these matches, this was a chippy and brutal affair. Those are always the hardest ones to call. And I already have low expectations for Serie A officiating. And when you throw the unknown of VAR into the mix, it really is what it is. I'm happy the team went out swinging. And I take this is actually a loss that you can still build off of because of the way we played. Juventus deserved all the points, but sometimes that really doesn't matter, unfortunately. And it is what it is. And here you have a 1-0 defeat. But honestly, that was a solid performance. And we can complain about the calls and all this, but at the end of the day, this team needs to score goals. That's how I honestly, this team needs to get that scoring confidence up and start banging them in. You can't dominate a team the way we did and have no goals to show for it. So take the calls right out of the mix. We've got to execute much better. That's just me and my summary after it. Omar, your summary.
Look, I've seen some Inter fans saying that they haven't seen Inter dominated like that, even against Liverpool and Real Madrid. This was a good match. Unfortunate result. It happens. It happened before. I always said that I'm okay with losing as long as the team gave up a fight and went down swinging, and that's what happened yesterday. I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed watching it. It wasn't one of those games that you just sit in front of the TV and complain about everything. We complain about one thing, the referee, but the goal felt like it was coming at any given attack. And there were some issues, but I certainly didn't expect it to look like that with Rabiot in a two-man pivot controlling the midfield. Like everyone was okay. Some were less, some were more, but in general, the team looked good. And if we play like that again for the rest of the season with the schedule we have, those are guaranteed wins. Those are guaranteed wins. That's what I came out with by the end of the game. I wasn't angry or heated like some people were about the game because it was a good game. That's what I heard from a lot of people, a lot of old fans who like the Grinta and the fight. That's what they saw yesterday. I was proud of you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why I don't think I was too big in an uproar or whatnot, because ultimately, I mean, I can't be upset with anything Juventus did. And I was caught off guard by this pivot of Rabiot and Zakaria. We were getting chances, a ton of chances. What did leave me frustrated was our set pieces. Um, our
Yeah.
corner kicks were abysmal. Awful set pieces. And let's get back to the drawing board on those, because my God, again, when you put a team under the way we put Inter under, you have to have something better to show for it. And we wasted so many good set pieces and corners, and that's got to be much better. There's almost no threat, and it was way too easy for Inter to deal with that. Now, in terms of this match, again, I mean, looking at the numbers, 54% possession to 46, 22 attempts, 5 on target, 5 attempts, 1 on target for Inter. That was a PK. If you're telling me 8 corner kicks to 1 corner kick, if we're going to be 15 crosses to 5 crosses, if we're saying at the start of that game, these were going to be the numbers in favor of Juventus, I don't think any of us would have agreed that that's how we would have played this one out. It is what it is, but 22 attempts with only 5 on target shows a bit of an execution issue, and we've got to dial that in. And still, at the end of the day, you have a crossbar from Chiellini. Chiellini completely mishitting that, not getting it right on trying to direct that thing right in front of goal. He was kicking himself and beating himself up about it. And then Zakaria with a fantastic run, doing everything right, just can't score. And we talk about some other opportunities. Vlahovic had a couple other. He had one where he shot through Skriniar's legs, and it was just curling wide. The opportunities were there. The fight in this team was there, and we owned that pitch. And in the middle of the pitch where it was suspect, where Inter does their most damage, we completely dominated them. This was a great performance. That's why I say there are building blocks here. Now, unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, that probably kills that little hope that was remaining for making that run and maybe stealing that Scudetto. Would you agree, Omer?
Yeah, but considering our aim by January was top 4 finish, I'm confident. The Scudetto was a Hail Mary. A lot of stuff needed to happen in order to make that possible, and it isn't in our hands. It was never in our hands since January. So I wasn't counting on it in any way. It would have been a spectacular surprise, but top 4 is still and we can sneak into third place easily. Inter could drop points, Napoli could drop points,
Yeah.
and we have the easier schedule. We can still make it. I said it before. By the time we have like 3 games remaining to the season, I want the top 4 spot to be secured. We can take the foot off the gas, and that's about it.
Yeah. I think at this point, talking about it post match, even yesterday after, I just think there's no need, I think, to kill yourself anymore and run guys down too much and really get after. Pretty safe, I'd say, with our remaining schedule that we finish amongst that top 4, which really became the objective after that brutal start. And let's be honest, there was people thinking we wouldn't even be in we were looking at 5th or 6th, really, ideally, not too long ago. So the fact that we made the run we're on, the fact that we've created that bit of separation is still a massive, massive positive. Okay. So now when we look in the grand scheme of things, Coppa Italia, you got to get after that. We've got one foot in that final. We gotta go after that thing. You gotta get some piece of hardware. So I think expect a big push from Juve to get that piece of hardware. And I think in Serie A, they'll probably now, after this loss, regardless of what Allegri says or anything like that, I think they might just dial it back and maybe try and preserve some players if they have to, because we've just been beat up and hurt with injuries, and now we're dealing with another one in the middle of the pitch. We'll see if Miretti can get some time here and there. Like I said, the schedule is a little bit lighter, so we'll see what ends up happening. But we have some topics coming out of this one that we want to get to, and let's get to basically first, if you had to choose man of the match, Omar, who's your man of the match for this one? And everybody join us live. Who did you have as that man of the match?
I feel like I'm obligated to say Rabiot,
Yeah.
but don't know if it was man of the match. It was a collective effort. Everyone had the defense didn't have to do all that much. The attack was, at the end of the day, wasteful, even though they created a lot of chances. The midfield was fine. I don't know. It's a tough question.
I would
I don't know.
go with I'd have to go with Rabiot. I mean, he deserves it for how he played yesterday. Maybe this is the Rabiot that Max sees in training and is why he's always out there and just doesn't give it to us all the time on the pitch. But I must say, looking at that pivot, there was a couple things that were different. Before we get into, we'll just get some of the calls out here. Jeremiah, he says Rabiot for sure. Luca saying I'd almost give man of the match to Max. Yeah, that's interesting because Luca's been no stranger to criticizing Max, but he'd say he'd almost give it to Max. Naveen coming in with Rabiot as well. Suarez saying Rabiot for us, Brozovic for them. There you go. It is.
Okay, let's go with Rabiot.
Let's
Okay.
go with Rabiot. So Rabiot getting man of the match. It was by far the best Adrian Rabiot I have seen since he's joined Juventus, hands down. Like I said, maybe this is what Max is seeing. In terms of that pivot, Zakaria and Rabiot, maybe, just maybe, giving him more space and having him more centralized, like in a two-man pivot, is what helped him, and he's not so pinned to that flank where he runs out of space. It's almost like he needs more space to be able to maneuver, because as soon as it gets too tight, Rabiot just can't do anything and goes backwards. So maybe just that extra bit of space in that pivot is what helps it for him. But your thoughts on this pivot, and is that a building block we can look beyond to, like maybe playing in this 4-2-3-1 setup more often and thinking about Chiesa joining in later on? But again, we will be losing Dybala. Just what are your thoughts on this two-man pivot and in general Juve?
Look, it worked out. Okay, there's no denying that. It felt a bit more simplified, like specifically Rabiot, his role was simplified. Don't ease up on the forward runs and the one-on-ones. Do the defensive work first and pass it to whoever is open. And he did that, and he did it great. Zakaria complemented it. And when you have two midfielders in a pivot, then you don't need them that much to join the attack and be inside the box like you do in a 4-3-3. But considering we're losing Dybala, I still maintain my opinion that number 10s are pretty much dead in football today. There are very few who can make it. Thomas Muller maybe, but maybe this can be a role for Locatelli if Zakaria and Rabiot are behind him, or a different defensive midfielder. But it is a building block. It is another system we can use against specific teams. Don't know how it would work out against a team that is not Inter or not top tier in Italy or Europe. But if it was any other team, then it's impressive. It's impressive what how it worked out. I don't know if it was tactics or just suited everyone's positions better. I felt like we suffered from maybe the wingers and fullbacks most in that specific formation. Quadrado was, the regular Quadrado. Sometimes he does amazing stuff, and sometimes just gives the ball away too cheaply and takes his time making decisions. Morata was, I don't know what he did exactly. He wasn't the type of guy to cross the ball in. He was looking to get into the area all the time. So maybe with natural wingers, it works out even better. If Chiesa was there, that's a win, in my opinion. So it
Yeah.
is a building block, and we can certainly move forward with it.
Yeah, I think when I look at this and I look at this 4-2-3-1 that we went out with and everything, I think maybe, just maybe, can this kill that fear of how we have to line up and how we have to play? Like, I mean, we limited them to like nothing. Like they were pretty much toothless outside of a couple little dicey scenarios where the ball was kind of bouncing around in our area, whatnot. But could this be maybe the match that kind of gives Max a little bit more confidence in kind of unleashing a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it does, because of the injuries, going to a two-man midfield is logical. We don't have the man for a three-man midfield and to keep it going week in, week out. If we had a full roster, then maybe it's a different story, and you have players with different elements to the game that you can sub in. But when you're basically all your guys are defensive midfielders, It's a good, like, I wasn't worried about counterattacks. I thought I'd be that Inter would defend and go
Yeah.
out and they have counterattacks, but it wasn't a problem. We snuffed out everything with Chiellini and the Ligt playing higher than usual, and Rabiot and Zakaria tracking back all the time and just crossing lanes and everything. They stopped everything. Nothing got through them. There were a few moments where I was a bit shaky, but we snuffed out everything.
Yeah. And
It
it's
looked
almost
good.
like, because you have questions. You have questions that come in like Sal here saying, I agree, Rabiot, but was it the system, his quality, or his effort? And could this have been him all season? Well, I mean, that's why I was saying earlier, I think in this two-man pivot, you really see how much more space that those guys have. And when you add a third one in there, it's almost like we close ourselves in, right? And all of a sudden you have just a lot of short passes to make. And maybe it makes us slow things down, but the pace, the tempo in which we played at, everything played to our benefits. Another big thing was we did not have a big number of turnovers. Okay. Whereas usually Juventus has a lot of poor turnovers and cheap ones at that. That didn't happen in this match yesterday. And maybe that is because of the system and the way they were spaced out. They were moving the ball crisply, at good tempo, good pace. And maybe it is because of the spacing and the positions of this system and what it allows. But in the first half, they could have probably went to Vlahovic a little bit more. Second half, they really got after it and started to play off of him a bit and try to make things open up a bit more and put Skriniar under, as Skriniar got a card right at the end of the first half with Quadrado when they were calling for things. But to be honest, yeah, there's still a lot of building blocks that we have to look at here. My last question before we go on to the next segment, and this is for everybody involved. If you see that Rabiot finishing off the season consistently in the next string of games, do you think about keeping him?
Me, me personally, no. Like, he did a job that a defensive midfielder should do, and you can find a lot of other guys across Europe to do exactly the same and maybe a bit more. But he is what we got right now. He's the only midfielder who wasn't injured this season, and so we kind of banking on him. We have no other options.
Yeah.
My main thought was what I wanted to see most with this formation is how we react after we score, because usually we drop back, and I wanted to see if this could be maintained throughout the game, and it wasn't just because it's Inter, then it's a high intensity game. If we can keep this level of intensity against all opponents, or is it just a one off because of the how important this game was?
Yeah. And that's the thing. So, I mean, ultimately, I think Rabiot's price tag is going to be what kills him. It's still just too much money for the return, and it seems like that's everybody's. Yeah, Sal, still too expensive. Luis saying I would give Dybala Rabiot's money, and Megan actually saying if that's Rabiot, I keep him 100%. If so, yeah, he doesn't have much time to show that consistently. What 8 games remaining, but we'll see what ends up happening here. Let's talk about Vlahovic. I wanted to talk about Vlahovic. Kind of got into it a little bit earlier, and are there some concerns there with Dusan Vlahovic? This is another match where facing a stern defender, and you can see you can see him get a little rattled. You've seen him get a little rattled with Bremer there against Torino and whatnot. And in this one, I felt a lot of frustrations in the first half because I felt he was too quick to always just want to take a step and shoot and not really challenge Skriniar enough and make life a little bit more miserable for him. If we remember to when we were playing certain teams when Vlahovic came back, he was a load. He was a handful for these guys. And now he's facing the tougher ones, but he's maybe getting in his own head and rattling. I don't know. I want a little more out of him, and I want that mentality that we've heard about, that we've discussed, coming in and taking the number 7, which speaks volumes. Even Del Piero mentioned. I don't know. Are there any concerns there with Vlahovic? Do you see the same things that I was kind of seeing?
No, no. I see a young striker who is still learning, and ever since Messi and Ronaldo broke onto the scene, and later Lewandowski, it's kind of expected from strikers to finish the season with 40 goals, or they're not good enough. But this is just reality. He's a 21-year-old guy against maybe even more experienced defenders. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. He did score since coming in. He has like, I don't know, 5 goals. I'm not concerned. If he was a 28-year-old striker, then that's different. There's no room for improvement, but he still has a lot of room for improvement. And he did get the chances. He did whip in a beautiful ball to Morata, who headed it just wide. And he did his part in the game. It was unfortunate to miss that turn. Looked like he slipped backwards, but I'm not concerned. He looks like the real deal, and he's a handful for defenders. Skriniar was bullying him, sometimes even unfairly, I must say. So no concerns for me.
Yeah. And I think honestly, I don't know. When I look at Vlahovic and whatnot, I see him getting frustrated when the guys when he faces that type of defender, and sometimes it might be taking him off. And someone raises the question about the pressure. Is the pressure too much? I don't think it helps when a Riva Bene. I said this for a couple reasons. When he said that quote after we found out the breaking news that Dybala was not going to be renewing with Juventus, and he comes out and says the second Vlahovic enters, he becomes the center of the project. I thought it was so unnecessary to say that, for not just the reason that you're just throwing salt on the wound with Paulo, but you're literally like, Vlahovic already knows this. Vlahovic already knows this. He knows he's got a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure just to wear the kit as it is. But to even come out and say this and put this on him is just even more. And he's young. Like you pointed out, he's still young. He still has to improve. He still has a lot to bring to his game. But there are scenarios, there are moments, and there are chances that I expect him to do better with. That right now, I think there's a whole nother level to Vlahovic that we haven't been getting yet for whatever reason. I think there's more there, and I'm not necessarily concerned, but I would be lying if I said what we've been getting is exactly what I expected. I'd be lying if I said that. I think there's more that we should be getting from him.
Look, I just think people expect too much from these young fellas. Like, does anyone have any doubts about Holland's quality and what he's going to be? But Dortmund are getting battered every other day by teams from all across the league, not just the top teams. So Mbappe missed the most important penalty for France, the one that got them out of the, what was it, the Euros, and no one even ran up to him and to consult him. So we do put a lot of pressure on these youngsters and expect them to act like, people compared him to Higuain and said Higuain would have scored that. 28-year-old Higuain, when he came to Juve, would have scored that. 21-year-old Higuain, I'm not so sure. So let's give him the time he needs, because just the pressure is too much at this point for these young fellas to play at such a high level, and in front of a packed stadium in the biggest game in Italy, everything. Lower your expectations and you might be surprised. If they're too high, you probably will get disappointed. That's the way I see it. I think he still needs room to grow, same as Mbappe or Holland or any other young fella out there. Not everyone is born Messi and can have a 16-year career where he just scores 40 goals a season. It doesn't work like that, not for the best players ever. And we shouldn't act like Zidane or the Ronaldo from Brazil didn't have any bad games ever. Everyone has them, especially as young players. It will evolve, we will learn from it, and we will get a better striker next season and the season after. I'm
In
positive of it.
this in the second half of this one though, you saw the switch. You saw the switch because he did start to try to take Skriniar on a little bit more, and he did try to and he made a great turn on the one, but then again, the follow through. That has to hit the target from there. When you've done everything right, you're surrounded by three players, you've done everything right to open that up, off foot or not. I think he's got to hit the target with that. But
I agree.
again, again, it's still early on. He's still young and whatnot. We get this and everything. And I'm just saying, I think there could be a little more. And it's almost like somebody talked to him at halftime in this one and said, "Hey, like start taking those chances, start trying to dribble him, start putting him under, especially with Skriniar being on a yellow." So I did see a little bit of a flip there, and that's actually should be a positive. That should be a positive that he did start to do it in the second half and whatnot. But I would have liked it earlier on and whatnot, and maybe it could have required more assistance for Skriniar had he had done that, and could have opened something up for another player, right? But regardless, it's not an issue. It's not a huge thing or whatnot. But I think in terms of
No,
Vlahovic
there
right
were a
now,
lot. There
I
were a
think
lot
we're
of
okay to
instances.
ask for a little bit more. And there's a lot of Juventini saying he looks a different player than when he was at Fiorentina, but teams play Juventus a lot. There's a lot. It's not apples to apples. Playing for Fiorentina, playing for Juventus, it's not apples to apples.
Look,
We've already talked about the weight of just playing for those teams is different. The way other clubs play those teams is different. There's a lot to it. But we want to talk now about Allegri. You want to talk about Allegri specifically and whatnot. And I'm going to let you take this part over, Omar. I'm going to remind everybody, please like the video and start dropping your questions for Storm the Barn. Okay. And that's where you guys get to fire away rapid fire questions. And I'll highlight some, pick some, and we'll do our best to give brief answers. But Omar, let's talk about Allegri.
yeah, I saw something from Allegri yesterday in his behavior that I've never seen from him ever. Being this angry on the sidelines, yelling at the referees. Not it wasn't even at the players. And maybe there's something to it. I don't know. Maybe it's the pressure. Maybe it just he had enough with all those refereeing decisions. It took like 10 minutes to finalize this penalty since it was first whistle. I remember him throwing his jacket. It's his trademark move, but it happened in the past when we won and we fell to pressure near the end and he didn't want to lose the game or tie it, which is understandable. This is the first time I see him react that way when we're losing, just yelling at the referees. And I don't know, maybe someone in the chat can refresh my memory if it happened before, if you've seen him act like this before, and what do you think it is? Is it just the pressure of from the management, from everything going on, or is it just the refereeing that got him this upset? What I don't know. I have no answer for it, but it was weird. Seems like he lost it, and Allegri is never the guy who loses it.
Yeah. I think maybe if you see your team going out there doing everything right, bossing this game, and it's still not working, and you have what we all felt like was a ref that was not doing us any favors, there's at some point after scenario after scenario after scenario after scenario after scenario, you're going to hit a boiling point. And I think he just reached a boiling point. Because, I mean, we all agree, how does Lautaro stay out there for 90 minutes or whatever till he got subbed late in the game? It should have never happened, realistically. If we're all saying that first play, a minute and a half in, regardless of it being the first infraction, could have easily been a red, how on earth does he get by on the challenge on Chiellini? There was another scenario too that could have easily been his second yellow and whatnot. So you have that. You have them earning the PK, very, very similar situation, not going our way in the second time, but it still remains a foul, whatnot. Like, it's just you've got Locatelli taking an absolute beatdown. You have Skriniar playing hockey for most of the match, uncalled, because you even said, as tough as he played Vlahovic, a lot of it was what seemed to be fouls, if we're being honest. Um, you have all this going on. I think naturally, yeah, you're going to hit a boiling point. And the whole time, your team is still dominating, is still bossing this game, and they can't find that breakthrough. I think it's natural that he's just gonna lose it, right?
Yeah, but he lost it early. He lost it. he threw his jacket after the penalty was retaken. That was the part that snapped him.
Yeah.
And I I don't know. I've never seen him like that. And the team reacted. It looked like it worked on the team. I don't know what he said in the dressing room afterwards, but the team came out guns blazing to the second half and kept it all the way through the 90s. They got frustrated and everything, but they did continue to play well and did it. This could have easily another Inter goal and everything would have crumbled, but they didn't allow it. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because of Allegri, maybe it isn't, but maybe something is starting to crack there. It goes to the question of the refereeing because it feels like it happens a lot lately, a lot more this season.
The other
And
thing is too, I think if we look at this and you look at Max, because I mean, yeah, it was right after that PK scenario, but I mean, it's the whole thing. It's a mess, and you had those Latoro instances ahead of it. So when you start feeling that way, and at halftime, maybe Max created that picture, us against the world. And honestly, that's the mentality we should always carry. We should always carry that mentality that's us against everybody. I don't know if it's necessarily you, it might have been Frankie and myself. It seems like we had this discussion and we were talking about Juventus just needs more assholes too. Like we could be fine with a couple more assholes in the lineup. And a young guy like Pellegrini always plays with that chip on his shoulder. And I actually like that about him, that he's a guy that makes players on the other team think about him. And they're like, man, this, like, he just gets under your skin. And all of a sudden, you've got guys paying more attention to this little prick than they are on the big scheme of things, right? And Juve could stand to maybe make that shift. And maybe that's the point where Max finally hit his boiling point and says, you know what? Forget it. Let's get after everybody. Let's go after this. It's us against everybody, even this ref or whatnot, because it's pretty wild. Rabiot's words after the game, too. I mean, he didn't hesitate. He puts his
yeah,
Instagram post and he says, yeah, great game. I'm proud of everybody. We did well. What are you supposed to do when it's 11 against 12?
yeah, I didn't like that all
I
that
don't
much.
necessarily, I said, I give him props for saying how he feels. I don't necessarily feel that way because
I bet you he's going to get fined. Let's wait and see.
probably. But props to him for saying that. Like, if that's how you truly feel. But I personally said I don't feel that way because at the end of the day, again, if you dominate a team the way we did, you have to have something to show for it. And that still shows poor execution on our point. Wanting the calls, wanting that's fine and dandy. We still did so much outside of that we needed to show goals for it. So I don't necessarily feel that way. What was your? Let's have you elaborate on Rabiot's thoughts. And you didn't like it, you said.
Yeah, we Juve have this mentality of staying classy. It's always been like that. We let everyone else complain about the refs. We will act on the pitch, and I don't remember any players complaining about it. On Instagram posts and in interviews. It's just not our thing. It's something that reserved for the rest of the league. All the other fans like to complain about referees for Juve. And I like that thing about us because, in some way, it's a bit of a loser mentality to blame everything else but not look at yourself and what you can improve and what you can do wrong. And that's what I like about Juve. Always, we had this class in the way we approach interviews and the way we interact with the media and sometimes keep things to ourselves and not let all the dirty laundry out. That's something that's very Juve like. And this type of post, it's not horrible. He hasn't said anything that isn't true, but I didn't like it that much. Keep your restraints because there's nothing you can do about it anymore. It's done. Even if they penalize the referee for some reason and gets demoted to Serie B, doesn't matter. The result will remain as it stands. So there's just no point to it.
Yeah.
Basically, coming from a player, we fans, we can bitch about it as much as we want and put all the posts we want out there. We do it for the team. There's no need for the players to do it either.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, that's well said. It is what it is. I mean, I didn't really like it. I found it interesting too that Chiellini and I believe it was Bonucci also liked it. Um,
Yeah, I
Or it was
think it's
Banu,
just
or it
like
was
everything.
Chiellini and somebody else that liked it. So it's funny. It's just the whole thing's funny. But I mean, honestly, if you're gonna ramp guys up at halftime and you're gonna paint that picture of us against the world and whatnot, you kind of open the door to stuff like that happening in today's world. Because if we talk about Juve and the way they were in the past, well, social media was not what it was
Yeah,
in the
I
past, and
agree.
things could have easily gone in that direction because it it is what it is. Like you're trying to draw this reaction out of your players if you're painting that picture and you're trying to get them to go this route. And sometimes, yeah, they just it ends up becoming you become one with this mentality and whatever, and it can come out. It's like an actor. It's like an actor when they're playing a role and they literally start to lose it and start to become this person or whatnot for a while, and it almost takes them a while after the movie to snap out of it. Sometimes they don't snap out of it and they just keep that character. We've seen some lives get ruined from it. So it's kind of the same scenario. And if social media was what it was back then, we might have seen it as it is. It's really hard to gauge in that aspect because it's so different.
Yeah, yeah, but in the past it came from managers and players of other teams. That's why I liked our managers and players not commenting on that after games, which were clear, awful chances made against us. Now it's coming from the fans and social media. Fine, okay, fans are allowed to do that. It's just part of the game. It happens in every league to every team.
Yeah.
And you probably have tons of pictures that prove some arguments to this team and to that team, and everyone has them. This is just the way media works today,
Mhm.
because it's not only coming from fans. These photos are coming from journalists and broadcasters and everything.
Yeah.
And so if everyone is covering it, then the players, I understand where it's coming from. I sincerely do. Just if you can
Yeah.
put a lid on it until an interview
Let's
or anything.
Yeah, let's try and get to some of these Storm the Barns as we wrap up real quick. We've got Luca saying, was yesterday our best 11? If not, who do you change? For me, it's really simple. It's not our best 11 because Chiesa's not in there. But that's really simple. I think I mean, best 11, we haven't seen the 4-2-3-1 enough to really even say if that is the best 11 in that setup. It was definitely our best game of the season. I'll say that it was our best overall performance of the season. Just missing the goals. Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, we might have just. It could go either way. We might have just got Inter off guard with that formation and they weren't ready to it, or this is the one that fits our players best. So
Yeah,
time will tell. We can't judge by one game. I'll ask you this: if you put in Chiesa, who's out? Morata or Cuadrado?
Morata for me.
Morata. Okay, I agree.
Yeah,
Um, but I feel like we're still missing some high-profile winger if we are to move in that route. And the fullback game, every team I watch, the fullbacks contribute to the attack a lot. They add like 6 goals a season each, and our fullbacks are contributing nothing
yeah,
in the attack. So Sandro is definitely not in our best side, not in our any best 11. And Danilo is fine. He's more in charge of the defensive work and he stays down like a third midfielder, like a third defender. And so if one of them stays back, that's fine. But the one who joins the attack has to have attacking qualities to him, has to get into the box. That Zakaria shot, left back should have been there for the rebound. That's his exact position when we attack.
yeah,
And Sandro is just not that type of guy.
yeah,
So he's out. Chiellini, I don't know, say because he's leaving at the end of the season. So is Bala. So I can't say that it's our best 11 maybe for this season, but we can't bank on it because a lot of these faces won't be here next season.
yeah,
According to reports, at least 5.
yeah. Exactly. So CJ Gerardo. Now let's get to the next one. Will Tech start in a Coppa Italia final? I say you start him. Yep.
I don't think so. They're staying loyal to the second goalkeeper who played the
Perin?
entire tournament. Yeah, they tend
Yeah.
to do that. Um, I don't know.
Maybe
Depends on
maybe they
how we
give
end
it
the
to
season.
Perin. Whatever. I'd say start. I mean, it's always like It's tough. You let Perrin take the Coppa Italia, take it all. I get it. I could see the other way, which is like a nice thing for the vets and stuff too. So it is what it is. I'm fine with either, to be honest. And I found it shocking to hear that he would probably re-sign Perrin. I'm expecting him to go somewhere to get the starting minutes and whatnot. So it's interesting. Let's scan for some more here. Why is everyone against Juve off and on the field? Because we're the best team in Italy, historically, and people love to go against that. Take a look at all major sports around the world. The best teams historically are the most hated teams.
Yeah, Man United is the most hated team in England. Real Madrid is the most hated team in Spain. It's just the
The
way
New
it
York
works.
Yankees of baseball, like it's natural for the majority to want to go against the serial winners. It's nature.
Yeah, a win or draw for Venezia against Juve is a big celebration for 90% of Serie A. That's the highest they can get to top level European football. So a win for them doesn't matter where they end up in the season. If they beat Juve, they've done their part, and it trickles down to the fans. And that's the upside of being the best team in the league
Yeah.
historically.
Let's see if we can slip one or two more. Dybala's been referred to as a Juventus legend. Do we still feel that was now that he's leaving? Where's the line for who's a legend? Is it based on time, performance? Oh, this is a tough one, Sal, for Storm the Barn. We had a couple discussions about this before, and however you label it, we determined that there are tiers to it. Dybala is one, like there's guys that people consider legends, and for me, they're even above legend. But if you want to name them as legends, there's guys that nobody's going to ever match for Juventus, and they're kind of in their cut above. I would say Paulo's just below that, because it's hard to deny him completely, in my opinion, because of the fact he's top 10 all time on our scoring list, and he's third best foreigner for numbers. So he's a tier below, but there's guys that are going to be untouched, clear, miles, and that tier below, there's still a big gap from guys like ADP and Buffon and Bonaberti and Sivori and stuff like that. So Omar, real quick on this.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, so I won't expand too much. There are players who are the best players in a specific point in time. Legend means something you will remember forever, and Dybala falls to me into that same rank with Didier Deschamps, for example, or Davids, who symbolize a certain era of Juve, but you won't remember him as being the best ever, as the legends. Anyone who's seen Juve in the 70s, 80s, 90s has a different players that they adored as children, as teenagers, and that's where Dybala falls for me. He's done a lot for Juve. He's not Del Piero, he's not Baggio, he's not Buffon, uh, but he does deserve recognition. So an icon is the word for me.
Yeah. Last, not least, I mean, we've got a couple quick ones. In hindsight, do you guys feel Max should have started with DeCilio rather than Sandro because there wasn't any real threat from the left? I think we both said 150% do not start Sandro. So Omer and I both said that on
Yeah.
Match Day Live. We would have went with DeCilio, not even just in hindsight, but ahead of it. That was Match Day Live. You guys can check it. We said don't start Sandro. We would go with DeCilio for a number of reasons. We have Inter has destroyed Italian calcio. Cibarella Bastoni goes against North Macedonia, and they play better against Juve. 2010 Champions League final. Inter has no Italian state. Or your thoughts? There's much more that hurt Italian football. Obviously, Calciopoli, Farsopoli hurt Italian football. Right now, the numbers are staggering, though, and we pointed it out on the All UVcast Twitter account, and we've covered it in this show. You have 53% foreigners across the league. You have 8% club-trained players, and you have the highest average league age out of the top 5 leagues. Those 3 statistics all go against Italian football. Then you have the infrastructure and the production value, which is an issue as well. There's a number of issues for them to correct. putting it on the club we hate seems a little easy. Let's just leave them as the snakes they are and say that Italy needs work. That's how I answer it. Omar, anything you want to touch on out of there?
No, you summed it up. It comes down to just academies that are at low level in Italy. So once in a while, a few talents come out and break onto the scene, but it's because of their talents, not because of the academies they grew in. So I have no, just I can't blame anyone for it. Just we don't have the facilities to build a generation after generation of top tier players. So they have to
Absolutely.
shop abroad.
Yeah. And Del, Anish with a nice dog. Omar giving you the props there. That's our AJC mascot. And then we have Del saying that's a disgusting stat. It really is. And I've said, Italy can do themselves some favors and the young Italian players by scrapping these 35-year-old, 34-year-old journeymen who are playing for their sixth or seventh Serie A side and start funneling in the young Italian players across teams in the league, because there's no need for us to see these journeymen go from team to team like it's not doing anything. And would that really be a detriment to the league to have more young guys funneling through there? No, we are in all those statistics, 53% foreign players, highest Italy out of the top fives, 8% club trained players. Spain, I think, was the highest, pushing around the 30% mark. Okay. So big gap there. A lot of work to be done in Italy. Kush, this is probably where we'll finish up. Are we still in fourth at the end of the season? Kush says he thinks so after that performance. I think Juve can do enough, and I still, looking at the other team schedules, say we probably get third, to be honest. I'm saying third right now as we sit. Omar?
Yeah, I agree. Third is my
Yeah,
opinion.
I think that's where we will sit. Everybody, tough one. But Homer and I discussed it. For us, it wasn't that tough a pill to swallow, and we can run around scandals and conspiracy theories and all this. But at the end of the day, this is a story that we can really look at from the start of the season till now, and that's execution. And we are not clinical enough. We have scored few goals. This team has only scored 20 goals out of their home games so far. At home, only 20 so far. Okay, that's simply not good enough. It is what it is. We went out and dominated a team that nobody expected us to dominate the way we did yesterday, and you have to have something to show for it. Ref being poor or not, you've got to put the ball in the back of the net, and that's a problem that has followed Juventus this season.
Yeah, let's just start games assuming that the ref is going to be awful and don't expect any fails from him.
Yeah. Yeah. So is what it is. We move on. Like I said, even pre-match or whatnot, in all honesty and looking at it realistically, that game was bigger for them than it was Juventus. We have known our objectives for a while. We are on pace to achieve those objectives. We had a strong January. Let's back it up with a solid summer, and let's see how long it's going to take us to start getting back in the chase. After the work that we've seen be put into this season, I'm confident that at the start of the next season, we will be in that mix from the beginning till the end. And I see a different outcome next season. I truly do believe that. And I expect big things this summer. And I'm going to leave it at that. Coppa Italia, though, go all in, guys, and let's get that trophy at the bare minimum. Okay. I don't like the jerseys with nothing on them. I got to have at least that Coppa Italia badge on it. Come on, let's go. But Omar, would you agree that next season, after a big summer, could be the time where we get in there?
Yeah, it looks like there is money to go around. Demiral and Kulu are doing really great for their teams, so that's like 70 million already. There is a room to play. There are players on the market with finished contracts and everything. Just have to take those opportunities as they come and let the management do its work. I feel exactly the same as you. And regarding this season, we're basically in the same position we were last year. So not much has changed. We're
There's
closer to fourth spot.
You betcha. And there's going to be big change. We're already seeing it. Okay, so Chiellini will part ways. Dybala will part ways. It was sad that their last Derby d'Italia had to go out in that manner. It's not going to get any easier as the season starts to wind down to say goodbye to these guys, but there's going to be a big shift at Juventus, and there's going to be a big change. And we got to think, if this is one of our best, like one of our worst seasons, start looking at some of our rivals and what they've gone through for the years and years and years. Juve's got it pretty good. We'll never die. We'll never go out. They tried to kill us and they can't do it. Okay. So we've been through hell and back, and we came back even stronger. So the turnaround for me, just a matter of time. But let's see what these new players can do at the start of the season from the beginning and what they can bring. But this was a fight that Juve's put up this season that nobody expected, and nobody would have ever guessed that we would be even talking about a Scudetto this time of the season. And we put ourselves in a position to do just that. So that leaves me excited for the beginning of the next one. Okay. But this season, I'd say don't kill yourself in Serie A. Get your job done. You know, if the other teams drop points, you still got to get after results. We still got to get after results, but let's see what we have. Maybe you could look at some of the youngsters too. Coppa Italia, though, let's get that trophy, okay? But everybody, thank you for coming here, venting, letting it all out in the live chat. We love being together with all of you. We love the support. Thank you again to everybody who came out to Cafe Juventus in Toronto yesterday. Made it such a great event. We're going to look at doing that more. We'll be back next week. I probably won't be here. I actually won't, because I'll be, I might make an appearance, but I'll be at a tournament out of town. So I'll be actually playing. Excited to get back out there and doing that. The first time in 3 years that we're traveling for a tournament, because obviously COVID killed that. So pumped for that. But I'm sure the team will, you guys are all in great hands, and they'll bring you all the coverage you guys need next weekend, as we'll have Cagliari on Saturday. Okay. So till then, I'll bring you all the news updates. But thanks again for the support. Like the video if you're new here. Subscribe to the channel. All Juve cast, all Juve, all the time. And no matter what, it's fino alla fine. Forza Juventus. Okay. Ciao tutti. Till next time.